Now you might know that Hyundai and Kia are part of the same company, but there's another brand that is part of the same group as well. It's Genesis. And Genesis has also come out with an electric car based on the eGMP platform found in the Ioniq 5 and EV6 from Kia. It's called the GV60. Let's take a look at it. Before we tell you about the GV60 though, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you'd like to read the written review, the link is just below here. So this is a car also in the crossover SUV class, but there's something about the way they've styled it that makes it look not quite as big, even though it almost certainly is as big as the other two cars. Unsurprisingly, this car does have the same DNA as the other cars with the eGMP platform, but we think it looks just a lot nicer. It's a smoother lines, it's much classier. Not that we dislike the way the EV6 or the Ioniq 5 look, but this one just has that kind of smoother sense of plushness about it. The front looks pretty fierce, but not in a threatening kind of way. This car has rather smooth flowing lines with some privacy glass at the back, and the rear is sporty with that little spoiler on the back. We have to say that there is not too great visibility out the back of this car. Quite nice looking 19-inch rims here. Not quite as big as some of the cars in this class would have. Some would have 20, possibly even 21-inch. So these door handles, they will pop out when you unlock the car and present themselves so you can open the door. Let's take a look inside. So you can definitely see the interior is rather different to the Hyundai and Kia cars with this same platform. Much more luxurious. This is, after all, a Genesis car, which is a luxury car brand. These seats are fully electric. You can see all the different controls here. There's also 2 slots for memory function. This central console is quite high. There's a wireless charging space for your phone here. Behind that there's a cubby. Further forward you get a couple of cup holders, and there are these things here to make it possible to have smaller cups in here securely. Then you have all the controls. This central console doesn't move forward like it does on the Ioniq 5. But there is this space here, so if you did need to slide through, you might just be able to do it. Right at the very front is another cubby, a couple of USB-C ports and a 12-volt power adapter. The rear seats are similarly plush with this detailed stitching. There's a reasonable amount of headroom here in the back, but if you're over about 6'2" maybe, your head's going to be quite close to the top here. It's the same story with the knee room. Okay, but not brilliant. The central seat is not that wide, and if you don't have a central passenger, you can pull the seat back down and get an armrest with a couple of cup holders. Rear seat passengers do get a couple of USB-C ports and a handy little cubby beneath that. You might be wondering where the air conditioning vents are. Well, here they are in the B pillar. This is actually a decent place to put them. So it gives you more control and makes them closer to your face so you can get more air on your face as a rear passenger. This car doesn't have an obvious boot release. You just have to kind of wave your finger in the back there. And there you go, the boot finally releases. Probably telling me to be careful. You can see here that the space is pretty decent. Underneath here, there is an extra tray for putting all the charging cables. And you've got this blind here, which is removable. You can see it has 3 different slots here on the left and right. You get these points here, and there's another one over here for attaching a net to hold your cargo in. Strangely, if you want to drop the rear seats forward, you have to pull this lever here on the side. There's nothing else to use. You get the typical 60-40 arrangement here. You can see that the final result is definitely large, not as much as a Model Y's boot, but enough for plenty of luggage. If you did want to kind of go and buy some expensive furniture, you might be able to fit a few seats in the back here. We'll give you the exact figures in the written review. You turn the car on with this button. But when you do that, you get this thing happening. What looks like some kind of scented globe turns into the car controls. Drive modes are selected with this knob. You've got drive, neutral and reverse if you rotate, and then park in the middle. The steering wheel has adaptive cruise control on the left, and on the right you've got media controls. You also get these paddles which don't change gear, they just increase and decrease regen. Behind those you've got traditional stalks for the lights on the left, and on the right you have windscreen wipers. The dashboard display is digital. You've got speed, and power versus regen on the left. There's ADAS stuff in the middle, and on the right are these widgets that you can choose between. This car also has a HUD. You can just about see it ghosted there. It gives you speed, some directions when you're in sat-nav mode, speed limit, and some safety functions as well. The air conditioning does have its own set of discrete controls. You've got actual buttons left and right for controlling temperature. It's dual zone, and the rest of it is touch control, but they are at least there and they're quite visible most of the time. You will be able to operate those without having to look too closely. So now we come to the central media display. You'll see that it forms a slight continuum with the dashboard display, but it is actually a discrete screen. There's this control here for going through the functions. So you can see here, you can go from the EV mode, there's this map, destination, phone projection, which is just their posh way of talking about CarPlay and Android Auto, various settings, 3D settings, there's a lot of stuff here. Media, Genesis Live, climate control again. Quite a lot of different things here, but you don't go back to the beginning when you get to the end, which is slightly annoying. There's a sat nav here. This is of course a touch screen. Go through destinations. Fairly intuitive. Lots of car settings. So Genesis is perhaps most infamous for being the brand that Tiger Woods had a crash in. That kind of speaks rather positively to its safety record, however, because he's playing golf again now, and he was going quite fast at the time. Now this car feels absolutely gorgeous inside, and you can see the safety tech just cut in there because I slightly strayed across the centre of the road. Naughty me. So we've got a first look test drive around the Goodwood area. This is part of a Goodwood media drive day. We're driving around the Goodwood area. You've got the race course for horses on the left there. Genesis is coming out with a range of different versions of this car, but this one that I'm in right now is a top of the range dual motor model. This has 483 horsepower, so that makes it on par with the top of the range GT version of the EV6, and a model that hasn't even arrived yet of the Ioniq 5 with dual motors. Now there are other dual motor versions of this drivetrain, but this is the most powerful version. So in theory, it should be able to hit 60 miles per hour in under 4 seconds. So if I gun it, well, it feels fast, but it doesn't feel quite that fast, I have to say. So one of the reasons why this car doesn't feel quite as fast as it should do is because you actually need to press this button, the boost button, and then you actually get the full power of those 483 horsepower unleashed. However, you can only use the boost power for about 10 seconds and then it stops. These cars are also equipped with a 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now that is pretty sizable, but this is a big car. So you get 289 miles of range. Now there is a rear wheel drive only version of this car with the same battery pack, which is likely to get well over 300 miles of range. You can probably see from just the bits of the interior trim that you can glimpse here that this car is really, really beautiful inside. It is a Genesis. Genesis is a luxury brand. It's there like Lexus to compete. In fact, it's probably even trying to pitch itself above Lexus in terms of quality. It's a high-end brand. Everything is beautifully stitched. The steering wheel feels absolutely gorgeous in your hands. The Genesis logo in the middle has a remarkable resemblance to a Bentley logo. This is definitely channeling a bit of Bentley-ness in terms of the way the logo sits on the steering wheel. This car is very smooth to drive. It feels right at home on these Sussex A roads. Driving around my country estate in basically an armchair, very fast armchair. I'm driving this car in sport mode, and it doesn't feel as urgent as, say, a performance Tesla Model 3, but it does feel more than quick enough for a car this size. This is basically a crossover stroke SUV format car. You don't really want to be going that fast. Yeah, sure, there are these Lamborghini Uruses around that are still bonkers. They drive like sports cars and they weigh 2.5 tons. That's not quite what this car is. These plushly stitched seats are very comfortable. They've got quite high bolsters on either side that hold you into the seat. So as this is a Genesis, a premium brand, you won't be surprised to hear that it's a little bit more expensive than the Kia and Hyundai versions of this platform. This top of the range car is £75,000. That is a lot of money. For that sort of money, it is competing with the Jaguar I-Pace. I would say it's a cut above the BMW iX3. The interior feels even nicer than that car. It's obviously quite a bit more expensive than a Tesla Model Y. In terms of utility, not as much boot space, not quite as much rear seat space, but you don't necessarily buy a car like this just for things like boot space and interior space. The question is, how luxurious does it feel? Does it give you a sense of occasion? If you live in Chelsea, will you feel at home in this car? Well, the interior certainly says so. You can hear it keeps bleeping there, telling me that I'm crossing the central line, even though actually the central line here is really quite invisible. The steering is really quite precise in this car. Wouldn't quite say it's a driver's car, but you wouldn't quite say that a lot of Bentleys are driver's cars. They're more designed for making you feel comfortable while you go at pretty high speeds. And one thing we have to say, that these roads are not perfect. There's quite a few minor potholes and even pheasants crossing the road just there. This car definitely feels pretty smooth and irons out the bumps well. So should you buy this car? Well, it is really expensive. On paper, you can get cars with similar performance, even better performance and abilities for quite a lot less money. That said, it's very, very nicely put together, has a real sense of quality about it, as you'd expect from this brand. So that's a GV60, a nice looking car with a very strong sense of luxury for a lot of money. If you are after a top-end luxury car with excellent equipment, it's worth considering. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.